Hello everyone, Joshua Myers here, and since I just got done discussing my thoughts on the Halloween Kills trailer, I figured that right now I discuss on the Halloween franchise and why the fuck are there so many timelines in this series. So, let's dive right in.
Hello, I want to play a game.
Groovy.
Be my victim.
The old cynicism is gone.
So yeah, today we're going to be discussing about the Halloween franchise and why are there so many damn timelines. So, because if you guys don't know, so over the course of 11 Halloween films, there has been several times of, basically several attempts to kind of take another stab at this franchise, and each of them resulting in different timelines. You have, I think, 4 timelines now. And the way you could go about it is Halloween, Halloween 2, Halloween 4, 5, and 6, which is also known as the Thorn Trilogy. Or you could go about as Halloween, Halloween 2, Halloween H2O, and Halloween Resurrection. And also you got the 2 Rob Zombie remakes of Halloween and Halloween 2 that came out in 2007-2009, which basically makes it its own timeline. Now you got Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends. And there's that timeline. And also, not to mention too, if you don't count Halloween Free Season, which is its own timeline since it doesn't really count as a part of the rest of the series. I know that too, not to mention, there are now 3 movies with the title Halloween. The one from 1978 directed by John Carpenter, just called Halloween. The one in 2007, the 2007 remake by Rob Zombie, just called Halloween. And now you got the one that came out in 2018, which is a soft reboot, just called Halloween, directed by David Gordon Green. Are you confused yet? Because, yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know, like, okay, I know why there are so many timelines and why there's multiple films with the same title and that is because I blame it on incompetence. Because here's the thing, back in the day. So, they had one consistent timeline, actually. Well, as consistent as you could get. And the only time they kind of breaked away from that was Halloween 3, because John Carpenter felt like he was done with the the Michael Myers story after the end of the original Halloween 2. So he wanted to take the series into a horror anthology route, like Tales from the Crypt, or Twilight Zone, or Tales from the Dark Side, or whatever. To where, you know, they would do one movie a year, and each movie would center around themes of the holiday of Halloween and that. And while I like Halloween really much, I do like Halloween. While I do like Halloween 3 really much, and I think it's personally one of the better films of the series, I do see that's where the problems start to lie, because the film apparently wasn't successful when it came out, because people were like, oh, where's Michael Myers? Where's Jamie Lee Curtis? Where's Donald Pleasance? And I think the reason for that kind of backlash at the time is because of the fact that it was just called Halloween, like had the title Halloween Free above it. If it didn't have that title indicating that's a sequel, then maybe it would have been received a lot better. Now it's a cult classic. You know, a lot of people, there's a cult following of Halloween Free, and I personally love Halloween Free. But I do agree, maybe if it was just called Season of the Witch or some other title, maybe it would have been received better and more accepted by people at the time. So that's kind of where it started, and then they're like, okay, so the studio was like, so we now know that Myers is the thing that keeps people coming back to this series, so let's try to find some way to bring him back. And that's when they came up with Halloween 4, which they called it The Return of Michael Myers and that. And that one did pretty well, and they basically rushed out another film the following year, Halloween 5. And that's where that problem also starts to arise, because they got a director who had no interest in directing a Halloween film, by the name of, it's a foreign director, I think a French director, by the name of Dominique Affin-Gerard. He had no real interest in directing a Halloween movie, he just wanted a picture deal with the studio. And not only did he had not real interest, but he had no idea what he was doing with the film. Because he even threw in some stuff like the Men in Black, like the Man in Black and that. that you see around throughout the film, and he had nobody had no idea who that is or anything, or why that character's in the film. In fact, that character was added later while filming, and they basically decided to end the film on a cliffhanger to where they would just let future writers figure it out. And honestly, that's bad writing right there. So, jump forward 5 years or so later, and we got Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers, which is meant to basically be as a continuation of Halloween 4 and Halloween 5. And yeah, it dealt with weird stuff like the whole cult thing and everything like that, and it turns out Myers is controlled by this cult and everything, the cult of Thorn. So, and that didn't really perform so well, and to be honest, it wasn't going to, because of the fact that it was suffering for so many production problems from day one, basically, because you had the writer in the middle of this. He wanted his own vision, which apparently his vision was so scary, like the scariest one since the original. And like even this studio heads and that couldn't sleep at night. They had to turn the lights on to even try to do that. It was that scary, and was more going to be towards the psychological approach in that, like the original did. But then the writer Dan Ferentz, who's a Halloween fan, had two different beings on his shoulder. You had the producers like Malik Akkad and Mustafa Akkad and that. You had them on that shoulder, and they wanted to have their own vision that was a little bit different from Dan Ferentz, but still pretty close. And then you had the studio and the director, which I forgot the director's name. They wanted their own vision in that. In fact, they even went in and did reshoots and everything, which ended up being the theatrical version that we got. And there's also what's known as the producer's cut, which is the version we got later on DVD and stuff like that. And that was the producer's original vision and that. And from what I heard, Dan Ferentz said the producer's cut is the closest to his original vision that you're probably going to get. Yeah, that didn't really succeed at all. Halloween 6 kind of failed at that. So they waited several more years, and in 1998, Jamie Lee Curtis popped in and was like, hey, since it's going to be the 20th anniversary of the original film, why don't we make an anniversary release and just basically, I could come back and everything and just do another one for the anniversary of the original. And they greenlit it. They decided to ignore Halloween's 4 through 6, so that timeline is niched. So there's no Jamie Lloyd, there's no Cult of Thorn and stuff like that. And kind of goes back to the original 2 movies, and that takes place 20 years after the first 2 movies, because Halloween 2 takes place the same night as the original. And yeah, and originally Halloween 7, as it was initially known as, was going to be straight to video. That's how bad they were in after Halloween 6. They were about to go straight to video and that. And they had different ideas and that. They didn't know what to do until Jamie Lee Curtis dropped on, like I said, kind of popped up. So, and that's what became Halloween H2O. Then that was really successful. They decided they wanted to milk it one more time, and probably one more time too many, and we got Halloween Resurrection in 2002. And that ended up being practically the death of the series until 2007, when Rob Zombie came on board, and he's like, you know what, I want to remake Halloween. And he did, and even prior he said he thought remaking classic films was stupid, and that he said in an interview, he was like, if you're going to remake any movies, why not remake something that was shit to begin with and try to improve upon it? Which I totally agree with him on that. So does that mean he thinks the original Halloween is shit? I don't know. So, because he ended up remaking it. And then he was saying, and while it was kind of a divisive film amongst fans, because there's some people who love it, some people who hate it, some people are in between and that, it was financially successful in that, and Rob Zombie swore he was never going to do another film in the Halloween franchise, but he did, so I'm not sure what happened there. It's like, the studio paid him to do Halloween 2, and that, most people did not like Halloween 2. I personally like it better than the first Rob Zombie remake, but I know I'm in the minority. I know there's other people who do like it. But you got that, and basically it's like, you know, they were wanting to do a Halloween 3 with or without Rob Zombie, and that didn't really pan out. And they just, for the longest time, just been having trouble getting another Halloween film off the ground. And then there was like legal things with Dimension Films and stuff like that, which owned the rights at the time. And with the whole thing with Harvey Weinstein and everything, like accusations coming on that, the rights were transferred to Blumhouse and that. And it was announced we were going to get another Halloween film, directed by David Gordon Green and written by Danny McBride. They were going to bring back Jamie Lee Curtis in that, and it was going to be a direct follow-up to that original film. So that means none of the sequels and remakes matter in this continuity. Everything from Halloween 2 to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is niched. The only film it focuses on is the original 1978 film. So, and now that's where we are right now, and it's like, do you see what I'm talking about with incompetence? Because it almost seems like whenever because here's what they do. If a film's successful, they might rush out or they pump out another film. So, and then they keep up, and if that film's successful, they do it, and whenever a film they do, like a sequel they do that isn't successful, they basically are like, okay, let's restart from fresh, and kind of, do a different timeline in a sense. And then it's like, then you got the reboots, and that didn't end up doing, because it's like, okay, so you had Halloween 4, 5, and 6. The first one started off pretty financially successful, and that's why you got Halloween 5. Then you got Halloween 6 and that, and they were just like, that whole timeline was a failure in their eyes, and then they're like, okay, let's start fresh, and then continue off from the first two movies, and that's how we got Halloween 2. That was successful. Then they pumped out another sequel, Halloween Resurrection. That was not successful. In fact, it was kind of a bomb in regards to what critics and audiences felt like it was. And then they were like, okay, let's take our time a bit and that and see what happens. And then Rob Zombie came in with the remake. It was, and all that stuff. And it's like, so basically, whenever a film is not, like, here's the thing I'm willing to bet. If Halloween Kills is not successful in their eyes, I'm willing to bet that they would probably can Halloween Ends and basically be like, okay, let's restart from the beginning and do yet another reboot or soft reboot or whatever. I'm willing to bet that. So if Halloween Kills is not successful, they're going to do that. Or if Halloween Ends isn't successful, they're going to do that. So yeah. And it just boils down to total incompetence. There was nobody had a clear vision of what they wanted this franchise to be. And that's why there's so many damn timelines, and that's why there's so many different films with the same name, like 3 films just called Halloween, and not only that too, there's 2 films called Halloween 2. There's practically free Halloween Freeze if you think about it, in regards to storyline. Now you got Halloween Freeze Season of the Witch, you got Halloween 4, which basically acts as the 3rd film in the Michael Myers series, and then you got Halloween H2O, which acts as the 3rd film in that regard, and now you're getting Halloween Ends. Well, I guess Halloween Kills would basically be the 3rd one, so yeah, Halloween Kills. So you got 4 movies that act as Halloween 3s. And now with Halloween Ends, you're going to get 3 Halloween movies acting as Halloween 4s. So yeah, again, it boils down to incompetence, and nobody, like, there was no team on this franchise that really knew what to do with the series moving forward. And that's why we're in the state where it is now, with so many different timelines and so many different films with the same title, and basically acting as, you know, it's like... And honestly, that frustrates me as a filmmaker, and it's like... Now, granted, I love some of these films, actually, in these different timelines, you know? There are some good ones, like, I love the first one. Halloween 2's okay. I love Halloween 3, even though it's just a standalone thing in that. But I love it. I love Halloween 4. Love H2O. I even really like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. And I sort of like Halloween 2018, so there are some highlights with the fact of these different timelines in that. But because of the fact there was so much incompetence, there's a lot of duds in this franchise too. That's why it seems like there's more bad Halloween films than good Halloween films. And I'm hoping that, part of me is kind of hoping that Halloween Kills and stuff like that is successful, because that means this would be one of the first few times where we had actual timeline that's consistent enough, and then finally properly ends its timeline, because, you know, and done successfully. That'd be the first time within this franchise. So I hope that's the case with Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, and that it ends on a high note and a proper note, successful note too, so that we could say there was a Halloween timeline that not only was successful throughout it, but also was coherent, actually, and stayed within its own continuity pretty well, and actually properly finishes off that said continuity. So that's just my whole thoughts on this, and I don't know, tell me what you guys think, and tell me in the comments below why you feel like there's so many damn timelines in this franchise. Also, were you even aware there were that many timelines in this franchise? I would like to know, and if this would be the first time you're hearing about it. So that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.